Welcome back, everyone, to the Cancel for Maintenance podcast. If this is your first time joining us, we are a show that takes a behind-the-scenes look into the gritty, non-glamorous life of aircraft maintenance. We share some laughs and impart some wisdom, all in hopes of giving you that split seconds of relief in your day that will hopefully prevent a mishap. I am your co-host, Six.
I'm MVP.
And our third host, Shoreline, is here again in the back, silently monitoring our audio, making sure our faces stay fit for radio. So it's coming towards the end of the year, and this is kind of around the time where we kind of assess how we did throughout the year. You know, some of the good, some of the bad, our strengths and weaknesses, things we learned, things we wished we should have learned. And we picked up a bunch of hobbies for one. Stuff that either we've dabbled in previously but didn't really pick up until now, or stuff we just decided to go all in on. We've never tried before, and we just decided to just give it a shot.
We kind of talked about these in a couple of the episodes with Cora about, decompressing and relieving stress and all that, and getting in a hobby, whether that's exercising, sewing, boating, in my case, woodworking. That's become kind of my hobby over the last few months. And I've built anything from, a small box to a large piece that would go inside the house, right? Mm-hmm. A rack with sort of a upper backboard with numerous hooks to hang jackets, backpacks, whatever.
That actually looks pretty dope, by the way. That looks pretty dope, by the way. You know what I mean? Like when you show me like your progression, MVP for example, like when you start something out, it doesn't look amazing like right off the bat. Like some things might be a little bit rough cut, but that's just kind of like you learning the tools and the kind of like the muscle memory of the action. And then he pulls this one out like a week or two ago and like, hey, this is what I made. Like, holy shit. The skill progression, man, just went like from like 4 to like 11. Like, how did you do that? Yeah. So, and this was all just like I wouldn't say non-standard tools. I would say more like it's standard but harder kind of thing. Like for example, like say like you would cut joints with a table saw or a miter box or a joiner or something like that, or a routing table. And then here's MVP doing it with a circular saw and a chisel, So
I legit made a live edge bench this past weekend with a chisel and a circular saw.
Yeah, that's pretty dope, man. And like I said, man, like it's standard, but it's one of those like not as efficient, right? And when I see some of the stuff you did, it totally reminds me of like those DIY shows, like where a guy's like, I'm going to build a house today, or I'm going to build this cabin in the middle of like this snow-covered field or something like that, And, mm-hmm. I mean, granted, everything's all hyperlapse, so like they get 4 months worth of work done in like 10 minutes. So like you're kind of numb to how much work really goes into it. And then so when you decide to put in the work, like, wow, you start seeing all the hiccups, or you start seeing all the stuff that really takes time, like add up. And like, wow, okay, this is not as fast as I thought it was going to be. and I think that's kind of like why a lot of stuff we tend to kind of draw back on or turn away from. And in my case, it was like miniature painting. Never.
And you want to talk about progression, right? Going back through the pictures, the first starting, kind of messed this up, or many texts I got with a picture that says these beep figurines and their stupid small beep things and trying to glue together, and I got beep glue everywhere, censoring, of course, but that's kind of how it was to one of the most recent ones I saw, and that's where the way you applied the paint almost makes the figurines look like they have a blue aura coming off of them, which is, it's incredible to see, almost like and this is not a slight, but like, you know, kindergarten crayon drawings to Bob Ross paintings. You know, it's like, it's pretty impressive.
Appreciate it, man. And now that the one that he's talking in particular really was an air quotes happy accident in in Bob Ross terms, because I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And I've seen some how-to videos of how to simulate what I was trying to do. And these are guys who have been doing it for who knows how long. So like their eyes, their hand-eye coordination, the miniature or the micro handling was just like on point. And I'm trying to do something similar, or I'm trying to figure out how to do this. I'm like, yeah, I have no idea how to try. So I just like slapped a couple of things on. It just thought it would look cool. And it actually turned out pretty decent. Like, oh, there we go. Bob Ross. Happy accidents, everybody. And but what I will admit by doing this, whether it was woodworking, miniature painting, or whatever your like your hobby DIY skills are, there's a certain like fulfillment in it. Like of actually like exerting some creativity. And
yeah, it's pride. You created something with your own hands and your own eye and design.
Yeah. And this kind of brings me back to when I first became an aircraft mechanic, because I didn't know dick shit about planes. Like when they first rattled off the model number of of the planes I worked on for the first time, what does that even mean? I thought it was like one of those like those computer codes or something, you know, like stuff that you kind of throw in MS-DOS mode and it somehow generates a picture somehow. That's what I thought it was. And then they put the tools in your hand, you start actually doing stuff. It's hard, don't get me wrong. Some of the stuff, I busted my hands, I busted stuff on my face, like drop stuff like on my forehead or hit my elbow in places where I shouldn't, things like that. But and the planes that they make you work on are a heaping mess. They're like the ones that just kind of, they're about to toss it into the garbage, but they figure, you know, let's have some students crawl over this thing. So here's
I mean, that's legit how some of the A&P schools are, you know, especially the one I went to. There was many different airframe inside that place that those will never be airworthy again, or to make them airworthy will cost more than the thing is worth. So, but what better assets to hone your craft upon than something that's not going to be risking life and limb of pilots and passengers.
Most definitely. And even though this thing was a pile of junk for the most part, like it's a hoopty at best. It's like this hollow shell of an abandoned dream. That's kind of what it looked like. But some of the parts were still fairly good. Like they will never fly again, but they were still good enough to get the concept of it. So, you know, you bust your hands, you drop things on your face, you hit your elbows and knees in places, but you can sort of see the progress or the process of piecemealing this hoopty thing into like, it's basically trash, like this rat nest of parts, into like something that looks halfway decent of an aircraft. I'm like, wow, that was cool. Like we did that. Me and our student team, we put that together. We did it. And you slowly start feeling the sense of fulfillment. And that's kind of like what the simulated feeling was when I was doing the miniature painting or the woodworking for MVP. Is like, it kind of flashes us back to that initial high of like just taking pride in the stuff you did. And I think it's something that we as mechanics constantly chase. Maybe that's why we like things that are broken, or like we like trying to fix things that are broken. Or
I think it's we like the impossible, right? It's like, oh my God, you're wasting your time. But then you come out on the other side and you've fixed it and above your and everyone else's expectations. And it's that, you know, the kudos and the high fives and the well done, but you know, deep down it's that, yeah, they said it was non-fixable or a waste of time, but I did it and I succeeded.
Mm-hmm. And what I noticed too is like, well, at least from the outlet methods that we use, for say outlet, where like the hobbies that we've recently discovered, is we're reactivating a lot of different muscle motions, I would say, if that's the right word. But we're reactivating a lot of things that our brains have turned off. But we like using fine motor skills or having like those laser like precision focus, and just like having to see a job through. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, we do this day to
Well, embodying at the core of the word the tenets of a craftsman or craftsmanship.
Yes.
Like I know, we all joke about we're glorified parts changers, but some days that's kind of what we are, and you start thinking about, man, what is still the craftsmanship in our industry. And I'll tell you, probably in today's day and age, it's going to be sheet metal workers and some unique design composite technicians, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how we came to this, and I was telling Six this weekend, while doing some of the woodworking, and this has probably happened because I was getting a little hallucinogenic with the mixture of the stain and the polyurethane. But as I was sitting there applying either or to one of the projects I was doing, it got me thinking about, old wood covered or wood constructed aircraft, World War I era stuff. And then I started thinking about biplanes. And I got to tell you, to me, there's no better looking aircraft than an old school biplane. I don't know what it is about the two wing design. And it's just like, to me, it's the epitome of when somebody says aircraft, that's kind of what I go to first. I think they're just a beautiful design. Those old radials thumping away. It's just, they're very acrobatic, not very fast, but super maneuverable.
Mm-hmm.
And I got me thinking, man, why don't they build biplanes today? Obviously the small little, aircraft, the experimentals and stuff for sure, but why not commercial or cargo or military or whatever? And okay, I got you. We got super advanced materials now and way more powerful systems and engines and this and that. So we've clearly done some engineering since World War I and deemed that we've got better designs. But I'll argue that they still don't look as good. Yeah, they're sleek and whatever else, especially some of the new gen fighters. But if you tell me about, a passenger airliner and a cargo jet, giant metal tubes with some wings. I mean, they're all relatively look the same. Anyways, getting back on topic. So I was thinking about it got me on this. Oh, they constructed wood and the fabric covered wings. And that got me thinking of when I was in A&P school. And one of my favorite things we did was build a mock, just a small scale wing out of wood. And then we had to wrap it in fabric, the polyfiber, I think is what it was, and dope it and butyrate, which is, I'm remembering right, it's got anti-UV protection in it to protect the wood from the sun and the fabric from the sun. Also a little bit moisture resistant. Then we had to paint it, and then we had to paint in lettering for whatever your tail number was or whatever. And I really enjoyed that project, and I have not touched fabric covered wood built aircraft since. Not a one time. Now I know they're few and far between. And at one point in time, when I was looking for a job right out of school, I thought about going to an overhaul shop and working on old aircraft because I really enjoyed that part of school. And even we put tears in the wings, right? We made this beautiful wing, and they said, all right, here, take your box cutter and cut an L shape in it. Now you're going to stitch it back together with the baseball stitch. And I was like, oh man, I don't want to cut my wing. Well, this is how you learn. And you use the wax string, and you do it all, and curved needles. And it was very, I felt very good doing that. Like I felt like a real craftsman. I even went home. We had this sort of umbrella type canopy on one of the tractors at the farm, and it had a L-shaped tear in it. And I baseball stitched it, and it's still to this day. And that's been, I don't know, 20, no, like 16, 17 years ago, still holding up.
Yeah.
But, you know, it made me feel like a real craftsman. And so it just got us on the subject of talking about our skills and our strengths and weaknesses. And sometimes it's hard to know what your strengths and weaknesses are because we don't do the full scale of the job. I'm sure some of you out there, you know, work in certain shops where you do a range of everything. But I know for the latter part of my career, it's kind of I'm not going to say a one-trick pony type thing. You know, you're a department that's mechanics, and you work engines, and you work hydro systems, and you work oil systems, and whatever else. And then you have your avionics, and all they work is wire stuff and electronics and nav systems. And then you have, you know, a hydro. You know, then you can even have a hydro shop. Then you got your sheet metal people, and then just you often don't get to cross train or cross work a lot. So some of our skill sets sort of diminish or dwindle because we're not actively using them.
You're absolutely right when you bring that part up, because some of the artist stuff that I thought was really cool, besides like the sheet metal and the composites, were the guys who actually had to do the paint. Because there were times when some of the painters, they get the liberty of just kind of creating the livery for certain aircraft. And this is where you see guys really get into the weeds of stuff, right? They'll bring their airbrushes, they'll bring like these different like little stencil cutters, or at the time they're like these little, it kind of looks like an industrial cricket almost for those who actually done cricket stuff. But they had like this industrial one where it can almost like, it can cut almost whatever shape you want it to. And it wasn't really to draw or paint the actual livery on it. It was more or less just to kind of mask stuff off. So they kind of work it in zones or sections. And you see this person just going to town, man. Just like, it's kind of like how a stone carver, they just see this big block of stone. And somewhere inside it, they kind of see like the thinking man statue or whatever else. And then there's like, well, it's already in there. I just got to chisel it out. I'm like, okay. But seeing like those guys, the way they work with the painting, it like how just meticulous they can get. And this is going to be something that's going to be taking a beating from the elements, and it still looks really good. And we see murals, pictures, paintings of aircraft with these liveries, like what was the one popular one with Alaska Airlines with that one fish that runs the length of the body, or like those pinups on old war style aircraft. Those were like again one of those little craftsman things. And another one that kind of came to my mind as you were talking about it is we have let our skill sets more or less dwindle to the wayside, because the way technology is, for as good as it does, it kind of diminishes you as a critical thinker, so to speak. Because before, when MVP and I were coming up, troubleshooting was like almost an art form in itself. Like, you had to be like real attuned to what this aircraft does and how it does it and when it does it. So much to where you're almost like a scientist about this. And then when it acts a certain way, or it behaves a certain way, or it sounds a certain way, like you can almost tell exactly what's going on. I think MVP gave this one example to me like some time ago, where this one person heard an engine running, and you can tell like at what stage was having problems. Like, I just hear a very loud like engine noise, like the squealing, the screeching, and the exhaust, and that's it. But somehow this person, his ears are just fine tuned to the frequencies of the inner stages of this aircraft, of this engine, and he knows where the problem is. So
right, and that's a result of today's day and age, where our manufacturing has gotten so reliable that we just have multiples of everything, so we don't have to salvage an engine, so to speak. We just go, oh, it's got a little bit of a knock, or it's got a little bit of an issue. All right, pull it off and put another one on. Maybe the engine will go back to overhaul, but we're not troubleshooting it in the field and overhauling. I was reading a book, and I can't. It's called Bent Props and Blow Pots, and it talks about being a bush mechanic, aircraft mechanic. Had to be back in the 30s or 40s in remote Alaska, and they got stuck on this frozen lake, and they hit a rock under the snow, and it bent the prop, and the guy had just a small tool bag of tools, and he wedged the propeller blade, took it off, wedged the bent one between two rocks, used his body weight to bend it back into semi shape, and then took his hammers and stuff and damn near put it back to factory setting, just with a touch of the hand and the eye, right?
Mm-hmm.
And same thing, it talked about this old radio engine, and they had a heavy payload to get out of there, heavier than what the aircraft could take off with. It would be really struggling, right? They would need a lot of room, but you're down in these deep forest valleys on taking off on frozen lakes, so you're kind of limited to how much runway room you have. And so he talks about sitting in a little trapper shack with the cylinder heads and files and certain special tools, and port and polishing the cylinder heads just to get a little bit more power out of the engine, and put it back on, and took off no issues, and they were able to get a little bit more power to make that climb out with a heavy payload. So that kind of stuff is just super impressive to me. And again, art forms that are dying off like a cobbler, so to speak, because the technologies we have today are just so good and so reliable. Right. Which is great, right? As for us advancing and moving beyond the realms of our own atmosphere and progressing out into the vastness of space. But with that, we do lose the critical thinking skill sets and knowledge and understanding of systems and components. And maybe we'll get there again as we venture into the void, right?
Yep.
Out into looking for other planets and stuff. I mean, we're going to get out there, and there's not going to be a factory supply line, at least in the early years, right? Long after, in the 41st millennium, right, of Warhammer will be there. But until that point, we'll be having to fix our spacecraft on the go as we're moving.
Right. And maybe hopefully, Mars will, as we start colonizing, we find out that Mars is like this buku awesome freaking planet full of mechanics.
They worship the machine, but are masters of the machine,
Yeah. and you're exactly right when you brought up the point with technology. Like, it has progressed so far, so fast, which is great. Don't get me wrong. Like, the fact that technology can almost communicate with us is fantastic, because now it makes diagnostics that much more accurate. It makes fine-tuning performance that much more accurate. The downside of this, which I believe is a weakness in myself as well, is we tend to rely just a little bit too much on the technology. We wait for the aircraft to tell us what's going on with it, or we kind of get complacent in just saying, oh, well, the aircraft's just going to tell us what's wrong with it. And sometimes, these advances, or these computer technologies that are inside the plane, or any type of machine, rather, is it's got to be working 100% right for it to tell you what's wrong with it. You know what I mean? Like, it can get a lot of false positives, or it can tell you all sorts of things that just magically don't work. And it's not like in previous times where you can just kind of bypass one thing, or just piecemeal it back together, so to speak, or use some kind of artisan like fix to kind of hoof it to the next stop where you can actually tear it to pieces. Versus this one, like if certain things are not working correctly, then the whole thing just decides not to work. It's kind of like your printer, you know what I mean? Like, you wanted to print something, but it's low on one particular color of ink, it's just not going to print at all. It's kind of like, hey, printer, print low on cyan, but you're printing black and white. I don't care, low on cyan. Like, and I've been hearing this a lot of stories, especially with the newer planes, like the 787s or some of these, let's call it artificial intelligence planes, right? They're obviously not, but like they're more or less that finicky, where they'll just be sitting on the line perfectly fine, no problems whatsoever. And then you as a mechanic, you're plugging in, you're doing your thing, you're more or less asking the system to run a built-in test to make sure everything's running fine. And all is going great until right up to the point where the pilot starts to really take control. And then it goes, oh, by the way, here's a list of problems. Like, when the hell did this come about? Right? And again, that as MVP has alluded to, like, the good part is it's helping strengthen our ability to diagnose. It's helped strengthen our ability to really fine tune things and be able to remove and replace things in a more accurate way. But the drawback is we're losing all those more intricate skills where we can actually understand the plane of what it's doing, or understand the machine of what it's doing and why it does the things it does. And just being able to fabricate a solution, right? It's like we were more, in a sense, starting to turn into just the part changers, the remove and replace guys, or what some auto mechanics call lubies. We're turning into lubies. That's really what it is. And as hurtful as that sounds, even to say, even to myself, that's more or less what we did. Like there was like next to no real critical thought to it, just like move and replace. And that's where we kind of get into those bad shop habits where we talk about the parts shotgun or the parts cannon. Just load it up and see what sticks, or keep firing at it until whatever works. And we complain about it, sure, all the time. And I believe part of that is because we trust just a little too much into the technology itself. And I think that's kind of the reasons why we as mechanics say it's starting to we're not giving a good enough reason for us to stick around. You know what I mean? If that's fairly accurate, So
yeah, maybe we lose the sense of accomplishment, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it's kind of important to find. I know we work on things all week, so sometimes the last thing you want to do on your free time is work on something, right? There's an old saying that the cobbler's kids went barefoot. Because all he did was make shoes all week for everybody else. The last thing he wants to do is spend his time making shoes for his kids,
right?
Or the car mechanic has the crappiest car in the parking lot because they don't work on their own stuff.
That's true. That's so true.
Yeah, and I understand that. You all week long you beat up, busting your knuckles and hands up and everything else, and you get sore, and then you come on the weekend, I got to change out the clutch in the car. I could probably make it another week. Although really make it another week, we all know, that time passed 6 months prior.
Right. Or
go ahead.
I was going to say, like, you hear the saying, like, I know my car.
Yeah. Yeah, like, the fuel gauge doesn't work. Yeah, but I know how far. Okay. Well, Kool-Aid likes to play that game with the gas tank, and the fuel gauge works, but loves to run it almost to E every time. And I know my car. Well, I hope you know your feet, because you're going to be walking, getting this gas when this thing breaks down. I'm not going. Really? You would let me go by myself? Yeah, I have to, because that's how you're going to learn. That's how I'm going to have to teach you a lesson. Always the hard way.
Why are we like this?
But I think it's good, though. Maybe not it could be something just like what I'm doing with woodworking. Just start off small, making something small for the house, and just applying your hands to natural element, right?
Yep.
And that could even be gardening as well, right? Getting your hands in the dirt and realigning yourself, a little bit with natural elements. And that, all right, you're probably all saying, all right, MVP, you hippie freak, like get off it. Well, no, what I'm saying though is that that kind of thinking, right? Exercising your mind a little bit, I think will help in problem solving in your day-to-day life, whether you're a mechanic or a desk jockey. Using your mind to look at something, say, I could build it this way, but how can I make it better than that? Or you could say, like in my case, all right, yeah, I can build a shelf all day long, but how do I make it? I can build a shelf all day long, and I can build them strong enough that you can break apart diesel engines on them. But how do I do that and make it pretty? Meaning, how do I do that and make it for a piece that you want to have in the house that people will see? I have shelves and stuff workbenches I built in the garage, and they're probably stronger than the house that they're inside of, but they're workbenches, so they're not pretty. I just build them strong. And so when I went to build that piece for inside the house, I said, man, I need it to be strong, but how do I make it look good to be enough to be in the house? And so you look at things, you say, okay, I got the main structure down, but how do I beautify it? How do I put the craftsman touch to it, right? And okay, I add some trim here, and I'll wood burn and accents there, and I'll apply this color of stain on this part, but a different color over here, so it kind of stands out a little bit as the focal point. And you just start thinking about things like that, and I think that helps you approach problems at work. Yeah, I can get this job done, but how can I be a little craftier with it? How will somebody know that my hands are the ones that were on it when the job's done, right? Okay, I'm going to go change a fuel control or a hydro pump or whatever on an engine. But once the job's done, whoever goes and looks in there, how are they going to know? And that could be just like, I cleaned up, I wiped down the lines, polished up the new unit before it went in, cleaned up the surrounding area. So it's an old dirty engine, but you see this brand new part, and I said, Six worked on that. I know, because look how clean, look at what he did. Or it can be just as simple as how the safety wire is input. I mean, have you seen some people? I'm sure you've all seen some people where you go and look at their safety wire job, and they did it by hand, and it just looks beautiful.
Right.
The way it's ran, the twist per inch, how it runs from one bolt to the next, and who it was, right? You learn everything. Oh, that was so and so. They're the only ones who I know who can safety like that. And it's just applying those little bit. I know it's tough to be, like we said, the craftsman in today's environment, but it's those little things like that that kind of set you apart as the craftsman of the group.
Yes.
It's those little details.
Yes. You just unlocked a core memory of me, man, when you're talking about like taking that extra time for your job. I remember when I was starting to learn how to release planes for flight, like pre-flights, and then actually certifying that this plane is safe. They would know that you're there because I had a mentor who would say, like, clean everything. After you done touching it, clean it, right? And I always thought, like, it's just going to be a heaping mess after, like, maybe 30 minutes of flight. Like, yeah, true, but you were there last, so they knew you were there, right? They know it was inspected because it looks, for what it's worth, it looks clean. And it's like, that's a good idea. And at first I thought it was kind of dumb. Like, of course, why? But then after so long, you hear like people's feedback, like both senior mechanics or pilots even. You're like, wow, this looks pretty dang good, right? And so then they start like kind of they're happy to see that you're there on that plane. Like, oh, good, he's here. So that means, or he or she's here. So that means it's gonna be freaking great. And it's those little wins like just really spark it for you, right? And likewise, like when you do your jobs, like safety wire or doing cable ties. I freaking hate doing cable ties. Or
or how about even routing the fire loop, right?
Yes.
Right. I've seen fire loops that look like somebody wadded up a wire mesh and just, what steel wool looks like, and just shoved it up in there.
Yes.
And you're like, oh my God, who did this? And then you see some other ones, or they're routed, and you're like, what jagaloon routed this thing? Then there's other ones where you're like, wow, what an intricate layout,
Yeah.
And your craftsmanship can even, we've harped on this many times, but your craftsmanship can even enter the paperwork side, right? If you're still operating on paper forms, Six had mentioned clean the whole area because they know you were there. Same thing, your paperwork alone, your penmanship and your way of writing and your detail in your writing will set you apart as a craftsman, because whoever's looking at those forms to release, they're going to go, and sometimes the people looking at the forms don't know you really at all. Never met you. They don't know the type of work you do. All they see is the paperwork that comes through. And they go, and they start building this thing like, oh my God, this guy has, or gal, but this person has the best handwriting. I love when their paperwork comes through because it's just so easy to read and all the details are there and I don't have to ask for more information and this, that, and the other. And they assume that you are the epitome of a craftsman based off of your paperwork alone. Then guess what? You start getting personally requested by that air carrier. Hey, we got a jet in such area. Is Six around? Yeah, Six is on due tonight. We got him over. He's over in Van Nuys working right now. Great. Well, our aircraft's in Palm Springs, and we'd really like to get him down there to do that. And I know, as a manager for that type of stuff, you're gonna. Okay, you got a person request. Hey, so and so, go replace Six at the Van Nuys Airport. And I'm calling 6 pack your stuff. So and so's coming to replace you. Start driving towards Palm Springs. Work orders on its way. Just that kind of stuff. It really makes a big difference. And Six talked about the cleaning, right? So many people don't clean up after they were in an area, and we're all guilty of it because we get in a hurry. But you should do your best to wipe down the area of which you are working, because again, it's if Six says, hey, I was over there and I replaced the hydro pump, it had a leak out of the feed line, and there's hydro fluid everywhere, but I replaced the pump, fixed the line, blah blah blah, whatever, put a conical seal in, great. And I go over there and look, and there's still fluid drops hanging from a whole bunch of lines all over the area. I'm going, are you sure you were over here? Because there's still fluid everywhere. Did you run it? Did you check for leaks? And that's another point of it, right? Is cleaning up after your area. Because how do you know if it's going to leak again if you don't clean up all the spill? So let's say I don't clean up and I say, hey, Six, I'm going to run it. I need you to go underneath and check for leaks. And you're under there going, I don't know. I can't tell. There's fluid everywhere,
Yeah. Yeah. Was it fluid from the actual part that you replaced, like something's failing, or is it just all this residual from when it sprayed from the time you took off the last one?
Right, from the first time. Yeah. What am I, so that also helps in future troubleshooting. Because if I say I wiped it all down and then it takes off and flies from Van Nuys and lands in Teterboro, and pilots over there are complaining about, they notice fluid dripping from the cowling or the drain lines, and they call a mechanic out over there, and I open it up and I'm like, oh my God, and they just replaced the pump? Who the hell did this crap? And you go look in the logbook. I don't know, that's some Jag MVP in Van Nuys, I guess, replaced it yesterday, but he did a shit job of it. And then he's going to be calling the vendor, yeah, it's a mess in here, the hydro pump, I see it was replaced, but from what I'm seeing, they didn't do a great job of it because it's just a all-out mess,
Yeah.
So you're proving to not only the air carrier themselves, but also to your fellow mechanics across the country that, they see your name in a logbook and they and they're going to see your name more than once, and that you want that to be associated with quality work.
Yes. You brought that up exactly as I was thinking it with the maker's mark, right? Or the craftsman's mark. And there's a reason why a lot of them do those stamps. It's kind of like, I made this is of quality. It has I'm willing to put my name on it, right? And that's more or less what you're doing with these planes, is you're stamping your name off saying that my work is top notch, right? So, I mean, take that into heart when it still looks like a sloppy mess. So you signed it off. It's like, well, this is the highlight of your work. Got it. Now, I can understand, if there's certain places or there's certain jobs where you just really don't have the ability to do that. 100% get it. And I don't mean like clean out the wheel well of every single like year's worth of grime and carbon dust and stuff. Absolutely not, but like something that you would feel happy about walking away with your name on it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the stuff that we've learned as we're doing our hobbies, our way of like kind of venting and channeling our energy in this is when we stop and we look at it, like, yeah, that's something I'll put my name on, right? And that triggers a lot of stuff where we would start thinking of other places, like, well, what else would I be comfortable doing, right? And it can be as big or as small as you want to apply it to, like an email you have to send, or a blog that you have to write, a video that you're posting, whatever, right? I'm kind of generalizing at this point, but like, what are you willing to release to the world where it has your name on it? Like, what is the impression that you're trying to give, and what's people's impression that are actually happening? And as MVP said, like his example is like, if it's a hot sloppy mess, that's what's going to be associated with you. Like, I mean, this person will get it done, but that's kind of like very budget. I just need it done. I don't care what it looks like kind of stuff, right? That's the kind of person that you just low risk. The job's going to get done. He or she can fill air and tires. Cool. But if you want the ones where like, it's a high value task, it's a critical item or whatever, and the customer is paying top dollar to make it to get it done right the first time, that's when you want all-star MVP. That's when you want all-star Shoreline, all-star 6, whoever, right, to be on that job, because that thing's gonna be spiffy, like down to the seam in its operation, because that's how your workmanship is like. That's how you've honed your craft. And yeah, I mean, yeah, granted, like as we said earlier in the episode, there's not a whole lot nowadays. You're not recanvassing a wing, or you're not refabricating a stringer in the field, but other things factor in, right? And how you express it, whether it be through hobbies or your work, it kind of highlights who you are as a character. And that can be like some strengths and weakness analysis for yourself. I, for one, know my penmanship blows. So, and I at least when I try to write, at least try to be as detailed as possible, or at least not make too many mistakes, right? At least like if it's crappy, it's a one-shot deal where you're not seeing erasure marks and stuff like that, or line out marks. So it's definitely something that you want to have the work express who you are, not your mouth. And you guys are catching my drift. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Be the craftsman in your preparation, execution, and completion of your job. If that's in, you get your work order, and you get yourself a nice little folder to put it all in, and you take parts cards with you, and you kind of try to plan for, all right, what am I going to need when I'm on the road? Am I going to need Ziploc bags to bag the lines to check for gearbox seal oil leak? Am I going to need extra cans of oil? Am I going to need, is the van set up? Is the van clean? Is the van ready for me to work out of for the next few days? Do I have multiple manila folders to keep the separate work orders in? Is the computer? Do I have a computer that's going to work, and a printer that's going to work? And do I, okay? And then I get on the job. All right, here's the parts cards. make sure my paperwork's squared away and I cleaned up the area and my safety wire is beautiful and running the Z pattern and everything else to, completing your work order, which means getting in your electronic database, as we talked about in the last episode, and ensuring that all the hours are input accurately and that you've billed for the right amount of fluids used, and you've got your mileage input, and you've got your receipts for the gas and your receipts for the hotel, and everything's logged into the database, blah, blah, blah. So when you get back to base, you walk in and hand the secretary your work order. And then that secretary knows, man, 6 is coming off the road. Yeah, I'm going to have to look through the work order just because I got to make sure the data entry is correct and all that. But I know, I'm 99% sure there's going to be 0 errors for me to correct. Whereas, then MVP walks in and she's going to go, oh my God, this blown out mess that's in this folder. What what war crime am I about to find in this paperwork,
That can't be any further from the truth, but I get what you're saying.
You know what I mean? But just exude it in all you do.
Yes.
And do it in your hobbies, right? Try to become, if you're a model painter, research it, read up on it, practice, get your hands involved and use those critical thinking skills to hone your trade and get better. Same for the woodworking, right? Yeah, I have an idea, but I'm not 100% sure. I got to tell you, YouTube, like the algorithms for my YouTube right now are like almost, it's either Warhammer or woodworking. You choose your W, Yep. What are the W's there?
Yep. Mine is also like it's Warhammer, mini model painting, which is mostly Warhammer. Lord of the Rings and lore. Same with Warhammer lore and welding. A lot of welding.
I guess I do watch. There's a channel on YouTube where they just build crazy machines.
Yeah,
out of their shop in Idaho.
Yeah, that's another thing too is welding, man. That's artistry in itself, man. Like it seems easy, but man, like we've seen some people do some craziness. Like it doesn't even look like a weld; it just looks like a rainbow almost. You know what I mean? Like insanity. I mean, it could also be some of your hobbies, man. It can be. Like maybe not so much to challenge your muscle memory, but maybe it challenges your brain a little bit, right? It forces you to kind of think out of the box. I don't know, like playing Uno with your family or something like that, or like building Lego models from scratch, not just like the ones that already have like pre-made instructions. Or even
like my youngest son, that's what he does right now. He'll watch whatever on TV, and then he'll see something that interests him, and he'll try to build it from memory out of just random Legos. Like he was watching a thing on, I think I had a documentary on about World War I or something. He saw one of those World War I era designed tanks where it's kind of like gigantic track systems in a trapezoidal shape or whatever. And he built one just from memory and piecing random Lego pieces together. But that's great stuff, right? It challenges your mind. It makes you look at a kind of a bigger picture. What can I make from all these bits and pieces? And I think doing that is going to help you in your job.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, just like exercising creativity, period, right? Like whatever your outlet is. Hey, matter of fact, why don't you tell us what your outlet is, right? Mine's mini model painting. MVP right now is with woodworking. We both get into Warhammer lore, and every once in a while we dabble with Legos, and we also have our comics too. So that's a bit of a creative exercise. Like, how do you express something without using with so much with a limited space? You know what I mean? So. And that's another strength and weakness on ourselves. Like we're very expressive. We know how to like kind of say stuff, right? But like the weakness is like what medium we're using, and that's kind of where we really hit the wall. But it is an opportunity for us to really learn about it and kind of exercise it. Like, just because it's a wall doesn't mean we can't scale it. So that's it's fun. And I like, me personally, I like challenges. I like stuff that were like, the answer's not readily available. You kind of have to dig your way through it to figure it out. And that does help a lot, especially when it comes to root cause chasing or troubleshooting, because sometimes the problem doesn't readily show itself. You kind of have to chase around for it or dig around for it. It's like our sad version of CSI, I guess. Anything else you'd like to add to anything MVP?
Nope. I say nope and then keep talking. What a clown. I do that every time. Yeah, just get your hands and minds thinking. Can be something, as simple as playing with Legos with your kids, or it could be as elaborate as welding an entire motorcycle frame from, pipe that you bought at the metal store.
Right.
And you bend it and cut it, bend it and weld it into shape, just use those artistic and part of your brain to create something of beauty and hone your skills to achieve that vision you have in your head, and that will translate into the rest of what you do.
Very well said. And again, creativity does lead to productivity in a lot of different ways. How you apply it kind of translates to everything else you do, as MVP has said. But hey, well, what? Let us know what you think. What sort of hobbies do you do? How do they apply to your day to day, or how does it help you escape from your day to day? Let's say that. Now, what sort of ideas do you think that would be useful in your day to day job, either at work or as your escape? Let us know in the comments. Let us know on our social medias. What sort of strengths and weaknesses do you have? Let us know on our websites. Our Patreon is by far the best way to get a hold of us and have conversations like this. Patreon links to our Discord. We have all kinds of conversations with our patrons. So if you'd like to carry this forward or have more involved ones, get onto the Patreon and join us on Discord. On that note, hey, we appreciate you guys taking a listen. We hope to see you all again in the new year as the new year comes. Maybe we'd like to hear some of your hobbies, some of your escaping, some of your honed crafts or your creativity. And on that note, we'll catch you all again on the next one. Bye, everybody.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. We would like to take this time to thank our patrons for supporting our show and allowing us to make episodes, maintain our gear, and create merch for all of our listeners. With special thanks to Erica Lamont, Chris Hawkins, Eric Shaw, Dan Schubert, Ryan Frushauer, Kyle Keir, Mike Sherwood, Caleb Stockhill, and Jennifer Brofer. Thank you all so much for your support and patronage. If you like our show, please support us on Patreon. You'll receive awesome perks like access to our private Discord, discounts and early access to our merch, first glimpse of our comics and other projects, and so much more. You can further support us and show off your prowess as an aircraft specialist by visiting our shop at cancelformaintenance.com. If you like classy or rugged watches, visit our affiliate Rockwell Time at rockwelltime.com. Use the code CX4MX to save 10% off your total order. If you have suggestions for the show or you'd like to be a guest on the show, send us a line on our contact us section at cancelformaintenance.com, and we'll do what we can to get both your ideas and yourself on the show. Please support us on social media like Facebook at Cancel for Maintenance, Instagram at CANX for Maintenance Podcast, or Twitter at CXMX Podcast. Please check out our new comic series on the Tapas app. Like, share, subscribe, and comment on our comics. Let us know what you think. Thank you all so much for your support and listenership, and we will catch you all next time.